Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our latest check-in with the FIFA Club World Cup. The round of 16 has delivered no shortage of upsets that the European mind simply cannot comprehend, with Inter and Man City both failing against non-UEFA opponents. So we've got a blockbuster round of 16 matchups to get into, and we're going to do it and hope there aren't any 2-hour weather delays while we record this here podcast. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, it's your friend and my friend, Mr. Taylor Rockwell. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Ryan Bailey. It is currently thunderstorming yet again here in Richmond, Virginia, so I will be back in 30 minutes to resume my role in this show. For now, I hope that you all continue on in my absence.
Excellent. I hope you're stretching and complaining in equal measure, which seems to be what the players were doing during those periods.
I've actually gone back to Italy. I hope that's not going to be a problem either. So maybe it's going to be a little bit longer than 30 minutes. We'll see how it goes.
Well, a couple of teams have done that too. More on that shortly. Hello, Graham Ruthven. How are you?
Hello, Ryan Bailey. I'm very well. Taylor's continuing on. It's great to see you as well, Ryan, continuing on, because it seems like you've been sent back to Cannibal Island, going by the still image on our YouTube feed right now.
Ah, yes. I must apologise to our YouTube contingent. Hello, everybody out there. Graham will vogue in a second for you. My internet's not good enough for video today, so I'm sorry. Do you think
this is why our economy has collapsed, isn't it? There's no suitable Wi-Fi in this country, apart from me. Maybe Canary Wharf should move in.
I think far too much on download speeds, not enough on upload speeds. If I were a political campaigner, Graham, I would campaign alone on having more upload speeds in the United Kingdom. This is boring internet chat, isn't it? It is, isn't it? Yeah.
This is why there's not a British Mr. Beast, because they just can't upload to the internet.
Well, there is, and their first video is still stuck.
I just wanted to jump in from my thunderstorm delay to confirm that, yes, this is indeed boring internet chat.
Okay, let's move on then.
Well,
very well.
That's our brand. What else do we do?
Occasionally, we talk about
There's a Patreon.
Yeah, there is a Patreon. Thank you very much, Taylor. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is how you're going to access it. We've got bonus episodes, including some transfer chat coming to the feed. A JWoww has moved. Which one and to where? We'll find out in Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show land, where you'll also get access to our Discord server. Thank you to everybody who supports us via that medium. Taylor Rockwell, before we get into our Club World Cup in-depth chat, your general sentiment on this competition as we are in the depths of the knockout rounds. How are we feeling? You feeling different to how we felt when this thing kicked off?
Yeah, I think I'm a little more positive. I think I'm still not sort of like loving this tournament. I don't think I've fallen in love with it the way I have other tournaments that I thought I wouldn't end up enjoying, like the Nations League, both the UEFA Nations League and the CONCACAF Nations League. I came to really appreciate those. This one, I've enjoyed some of the upsets we got. We did not see Fluminense coming. I think I dismissed them pretty handily when we talked about their game against Inter Milan. Same thing for Al-Hilal. So getting some surprises has been really fun. Getting some expected results like PSG over Inter Miami was also kind of enjoyable. All the same, I look forward to maybe like the next iteration when they worked out some of the kinks. Maybe there's cheaper tickets, there won't be, and more people in the stands, there might be, and we get just a little bit more, I don't know, enjoyment factor from the players themselves. We'll see if that happens, because I think with some of these games you could tell, like about halfway through, some of the players we're ready to be done, and we're ready to move on to their 1 week break before the season resumes.
Oh, if they're lucky, yeah. Graham, we know you're a sicko, of course. You enjoyed this from the outset, and presumably that's nothing but increased at this point.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think this has been the best round of the tournament so far in terms of, if we count like 3 in the group stage, 3 rounds of fixtures, this has been the one I've enjoyed the most because obviously the stakes have been a little bit higher. We've had better teams. We have lost some of the, no-hopers, I guess, if I can call them then, although I enjoyed some of the no-hopers, long live Auckland City. But, I think this tournament, clearly there's some grubby stuff behind this tournament. Clearly some of the kinks need to be worked out, as Taylor mentioned, but I still maintain that it serves a purpose, and thankfully we've had some upsets into the latter rounds, because my concern was that we would just see pure European dominance once we got into the knockout rounds, and that hasn't happened, and we're going to have at least one non-UEFA team in the semi-finals of this competition, which, speaking personally, that's where the storyline is in the non-UEFA teams, so that kind of prolongs my interest in this tournament.
Very good. Okay, Graham, you mentioned some upsets there. Let's start with perhaps the biggest one, Man City going out 4-3 after extra time to Al-Hilal. Graham, just when we thought they were looking ruthless and we were, okay, Man City are unstoppable again, this happens. So what went on here? How do we explain this?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I can fully explain it, to be honest. You're absolutely right, Ryan. Coming out of the group stage, I absolutely thought City had been the best team in the tournament. I spoke about it in our last Club World Cup episode. They looked like a Pep Guardiola team again in the way that they were pushing the fullbacks high and wide. That then allowed them to invert the wingers and get them nice and close to the midfielders. And City's possession play had been really nice and intricate and quick. And Jeremy Doku looked brilliant, and Haaland looked back to his best. So I really did think there was a chance that City were just going to blow everyone away on their way to winning this whole thing. And there were still signs of those things that they've made progress on against Al-Hilal. I'm not saying this has been a waste of a tournament for them or that they've completely gone backwards to the team that they were last season. And they were well on top in the first half. And they could have scored more than just one in that first half because Doku had a chance, Guardiola Haaland had a chance, Savinho had a chance, Diaz, Gvardiol all had good opportunities. And Haaland kind of... I'm getting Guardiola and Haaland mixed up here in terms of the role that they play for this team. Guardiola pointed out after the game that that's where the game was essentially lost for Man City. But over the course of the game, it became a match that was very reminiscent of the Champions League semi-finals that Inter Milan played under Inzaghi last season. When Al-Hilal in this game, they just rolled with the punches and they gave as good as they got and they started to expose Man City in behind and went a little bit more direct. And Malcolm was brilliant at the start of the second half before he comes off with an injury. And so we started to see an Inzaghi team put Man City to the sword in the same way that they did Barcelona in the Champions League semi-finals last season. So that was impressive to see. And of course, Al-Hilal are a team with a lot of talent. If you go through their side, like it's majority players that listeners will have heard of, players that have made a name for themselves in Europe. And so Man City ended up in a bit of a scenario which was reminiscent of some of the games they ended up in last season.
Yeah, I totally agree. You said I thought there was a chance that City would just kind of like steamroll through. I was pretty confident that City were going to steamroll through to at least the final. So that they don't is definitely a credit to Al-Hilal. I do think it is also maybe City's own fault, as you said, Graham. They have plenty of opportunities. They have 30 shots. I think their XG is over 4. So probably could have done better on the day from the finishing standpoint. From the defensive standpoint, definitely could have done better, especially coming out of halftime when they basically, I think, felt like, all right, we got this in the bag. Let's just not make any foolish mistakes. And then they immediately make foolish mistakes. This is the one where Mohamed Kano gets the ball in his own half. He's over-pursued by Roman Ait-Nouri, who basically gets turned way too easily. Kano then easily gets past Gundogan. He holds off Ait-Nouri again, who's now made up ground and is trying to make a play on the ball. And then he just sort of touches past Gvardiol, who's made a very half-hearted attempt to come in and sort of help stop this attack from developing. And that doesn't just allow the counterattack to continue. It also means that now City are all over the place and out of position, and players have to get back into shape, and they do so at sort of a lackluster speed, such that though they have City, I think, 6 in the box when the cross comes in, 4 of them are at like just inside the box. They're like the top of the 18. And there's really only 2 marking 3 around the 6-yard box. And that to me was a sign of what was to come, especially watching this one again, knowing the result, and just seeing how not really bothered City were by what Al-Hilal were trying to do. You can see that with the second goal for Al-Hilal when they score from a City corner, essentially, and City have all of their players within 40 yards of the Al-Hilal goal. It's a quick counterattack the other way. It's excellent work from Malcolm to make that run, to control the dribble, and then to finish really expertly. All of that is great, but it's both goals, in my opinion, are coming from City just sort of beating themselves and not being as defensively ruthless as they need to be, which I think they probably will be once the Premier League season kicks off. I think this is still, sort of a preseason-y-ish game for them, and so maybe they just weren't fully at the races on the day. But I think that's a credit to Al-Hilal just as much as it is a criticism of Man City.
Yeah, I think the silver lining for City coming out of this game is, in a weird way, this might be beneficial for them in their summer rebuild, where it's made clear the progress that they've still to make. Yeah. Because if they just steamroll everyone in this competition, there's a chance they go, oh, well, we fixed everything, and they go into next season when the competition is a little bit stronger in the Premier League. They have to play 38 games in a league season, and some of those old issues start to come to the fore again. Having a game like this really exposed that City are slow at the back. It's an issue that they had this season. They haven't addressed it this season. Ait-Nouri's been great for this team, but largely in an attacking sense, in terms of playing forward with the ball. I don't think that he is a kind of a Kyle Walker figure. And I think it's underplayed just how important Kyle Walker was to this Man City team over a number of seasons, how fast he was, the fact that he was the roadrunner, and he would retrieve situations like the Malcolm one when he's clean through on goal in the second half. So that's where, City have spent a lot of money on this squad rebuild. That's where I'd be looking next. I'd be looking for a central defender with real speed. I've mentioned Mickey van de Ven in the past. I think Van de Ven would be... I haven't seen any chat on that basis, by the way. I'm just kind of magicking up that name out of nothing. But he's the sort of player I'd be looking for. Possibly a right-back with real speed, because while Mateus Nunes, I think, has adapted to that role well, he's still not a natural defender. So if you could find a right-back with those Kyle Walker qualities... I think that makes a big difference for this Man City team. Also, just in this game, particularly with Rodri not starting and then coming off with an injury in extra time as well, which is a real worry for Man City. And Guardiola hasn't really said what that injury is. We don't know the extent of it. But I thought City in the centre of the pitch were lacking physicality with Gundogan and Bernardo Silva. So those are I still think they're missing a couple pieces. I'd be looking for a quick defender who can be that sort of safety net that Kyle Walker was for a long time, and I'd be looking for a more physical central midfielder so that when Rodri is missing, they can still cope and play this very front foot style of play.
Graham, if you were going to do that, if they called you and asked at Man City, would you go for somebody who can sort of be a little bit younger, has a good pedigree, but you're going to kind of incorporate into the team as a theoretical Rodri replacement someday? Or would you go for somebody a bit older who could theoretically start right away if Rodri is going to be sort of in and out of the team if they are worried about the injuries? Because Gundogan, we saw this last season, is not going to be able to get that job done. We saw it again on the day, to your point. Not going to be able to get the job done from a defensive standpoint. Still very good in the attack, but too lightweight, I think, in terms of slowing down opposition attacks. So what would you go with? Somebody younger, somebody older?
I certainly don't think Man City need to get older in a broader sense, so I'd go for someone younger. I'm kind of struggling. I'm blanking on names, quite honestly. Obviously, there's quite an active market for central midfielders. It seems like everyone's moving for central midfielders.
Where are we at in the Zubimendi saga? Zubimendi?
His flight to London has been really slow. I think it's one of those flights, the pedal flights from the olden days.
He's walking.
Yeah, he went the wrong way.
I think by all accounts, he's on his way to Arsenal. So
okay,
but
Taylor,
there's surely someone out there.
I think, Taylor, if I were a Man City fan, I would have been really delighted last week and really concerned this week. Not just because of this result, but also the Rodri reoccurrence of the injury. And Pep Guardiola, before this game, sort of almost got the excuses in saying there's a risk that this tournament ruins our season. And when your coach says that ahead of the season, a little bit concerning, perhaps.
I would say so. I think that's the other aspect of this that makes it hard for me to be fully enthusiastic about this competition, is just that then you get those comments and it's like, you don't hear that. I mean, I guess you hear that about the World Cup maybe, but nobody really cares because it's the World Cup or the Euros or whatever it might be. But just right as you're getting excited for the knockout round, to hear a coach be like, I mean, this could be a disaster for us having to participate in this, but we're here. It's like, get excited. I can't wait. I also think, though, that you could see just a little bit of frailty is the wrong word, but I think how readily you can exploit certain aspects of this Man City team if you do some scouting and if you use their strengths against them. And I would say their set piece defending, for example, for Man City. The Koulibaly goal is my favorite goal of all the goals that were scored in this one. And there were some very good goals, but it's a set piece from Al-Hilal, who I think have recognized that City are doing a hybrid zone, but largely a zone if you don't crowd the 6-yard box, which Al-Hilal do not. So there's, I think, 3 defenders along the 6-yard box for Man City. No other Al-Hilal players really close. But as the ball comes in, Koulibaly makes a run in so that he's between the defensive line at the 6-yard box and the goalkeeper and gets into perfect position. So as it's coming in, just a little tiny shove in the back there to Ruben Dias that puts him off completely. It's why he's not able to challenge for the ball. It's why Koulibaly has basically an uncontested header off of a corner from 6 yards out. You would expect him to finish that, and he does. And to me, that's just them watching film and recognizing they can be got at here, they can be got at in this way. And I think what I would be worried about if I were a Man City supporter is that after that last game, it felt for all the world like, yep, okay, they figured it out. They're right back to their electric best. And I think they are from an attacking standpoint. But I think teams that aren't overawed by them and aren't intimidated by them and aren't coming into that expecting to lose can find a way to win. And that would make me a little bit nervous with other little issues popping up along the way as well.
Graham, one more question on this game. Obviously, the narrative around this tournament has been how good the Brazilian sides have been. Do we need to put more respect on the Saudi representatives in the quarterfinal, or the representative, singular, in the quarterfinal at this point? I mean, they have done incredibly well to get as far as they have, given, there's a lot of caveats, obviously, to their position, but
Yeah, it's not exactly a sort of heartwarming David versus Goliath story when you consider who owns Al-Hilal and the fact that they are playing at a tournament that has essentially been bought and paid for by the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, which also owns Al-Hilal. Go on, Taylor.
What was Infantino's reaction when Al-Hilal scored the eventual winner? I watched that one too many times because a lot of people, I think, saw it as him being upset that one of the favorites, the European favorites, was knocked out. But for a person who I think did some work to get the World Cup to Saudi Arabia, wants there to be legitimacy with Saudi football and the Saudi League, and wants this tournament to have some kind of surprises and create some drama, I felt like he was as enthusiastic as he could publicly be about Al-Hilal winning this one.
Oh, I think he'll be absolutely delighted. And while you were talking there, Taylor, I was trying to find, he posted something after the game to one of his social channels, Instagram or something. I couldn't quite find it, so I'm paraphrasing here. But it was something to the effect of like, this is the start of the new age of soccer or something like that, which made my skin crawl a little bit. But there is no denying that this is the most consequential shock of the tournament so far. And it's sort of impossible not to read more into it. Now, I don't think that this says Saudi teams are on the level of Europe's best or anything like that. I think it does say potentially that they're coming. And this is a summer where the PIF is apparently, I was reading reports a couple of days ago, they freed up more money for Saudi teams. They own 4 Saudi teams, I think, maybe 5 now with Neom, who are this like second tier team who have today just signed Alexander Lacazette. So they've freed up more money, and we've seen that with some of the players that they've targeted this summer: Bruno Fernandes, Victor Osimhen, Fabian Ruiz. I was reading just yesterday apparently as a target. Now they've not landed any of those players yet, but they have stepped it up, and to have a result like this, I think it's going to offer them more encouragement, right? That they can get to this level pretty consistently. So I think it's pretty seismic. And I think in future iterations of this competition, we're going to have more Saudi teams because they are dominating the FC Champions League with every passing season. I think there were 3 Saudi teams in the semi-finals this year. The finals itself were played in Riyadh. So they are becoming the dominant force in Asian football, and that's going to give them access to the tournament. And so it's likely we'll get more results like this in the future.
Great. Very good. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the shock of Inter going out and also PSG's big win over Inter Miami and much more. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Club World Cup roundup. We go now to the Messi derby, Graham. The PSG 4-0 victory over Inter Miami. To be expected, I suppose, results-wise, but not really a contest for a round of 16 game of a tournament of this calibre.
Yeah, it was up there as one of the most one-sided games that I've seen at this tournament. And I am including the Bayern-Auckland City game in that. The first half, in particular, was pretty much as one-sided as the first half of that Bayern-Auckland game, because Inter Miami were just a complete non-factor. And I wrote about this for The Guardian a couple of days ago, but Messi had, I'm taking this from the kind of research I did for that piece, Messi had 14 touches in 45 minutes. Inter Miami didn't have a single shot in that 45 minutes. They didn't have a single shot until the 50th minute of the game, and they completed fewer passes. This is the most amazing one. They completed fewer passes in the final thirds in that first half than PSG scored goals. They scored 4, and Miami had 3 passes in the final third. So, yeah, the game was over very quickly, and then PSG just completely coasted the second half. Inter Miami, they improved a little bit after half-time, but I think that was a game state thing where PSG are just getting to the end of that game knowing that they're through already. And obviously the fact that this was a mismatch wasn't surprising, but it was still pretty stark to see it play out in the way that it did.
Yep, I agree with everything you said there, Graham, and then it's exacerbated by Noah Allen coming off for Inter Miami in the 19th minute. He has a hamstring injury. On comes Thomas Aviles, who has issues.
That's not what you want.
No, really not. I thank you for filling that in, Graham, because I was like, how do I phrase this? As like, isn't reliable, is a red card walking, is an own goal walking.
Just not for the things that you want him to be reliable for.
He's reliable in a bad way. Like a Range Rover, is that right? Yeah, so in this case...
Or a pandemic.
Or that. Aviles comes on. picks up a yellow, gets an own goal, doesn't really cover himself in glory. But I would say a large chunk of the Inter Miami team didn't cover themselves in glory. Sergio Busquets just coughing the ball up and then not really being able to do much after that to make any sort of play, leading to, I think, the second goal for PSG. It just felt like sort of the chickens coming home to roost a little bit. Some of the defensive issues and the overall squad build issues that we've talked about previously on display in this one, but also not surprising given the kind of financial restrictions that you have with Major League Soccer, even with how they might have been relaxed to make Inter Miami work. And I still think you got some okay performances. I felt like Oscar Ustari, the goalkeeper, who hasn't always covered himself in glory this season, I thought he made some saves early on to at least try to keep this one level and try to keep Inter Miami in it. And Lionel Messi obviously tried to do Lionel Messi things, although when you don't have a ton of players around you and you're 4-0 down fairly quickly, it's going to make that life a bit harder.
Yeah, that Busquets mistake that you highlighted there, Taylor, was just such a sad moment where it's like, oh, this guy, he's not capable of doing that, because that little drag back is almost the Busquets move. That's his thing. And
La pausa.
To see him give up the ball in that area as he did, and for it to lead to a goal is like just confirmation that he's not the same player.
It was that combined with just after it went in, his little like shucks, like he just does like one little clap in the background of like, oh, that wasn't good. And it's not even like, oh, I'm really angry at myself, I've cost my team a goal. It was just sort of like, all right, well, on we go. Like I don't know, it just it felt for all the world like a team that maybe came into this one knowing that they probably weren't going to win and feeling like, okay, well, back to regular season it is.
Yeah, Taylor, I think when we previewed this tournament, we didn't expect any MLS sides to come out of the group. So there is that. There's Inter Miami have done well to get to this game, and PSG, of course, have a good track record of destroying some of Europe's top teams by scorelines very similar to this as well. So that is a caveat there. But let me ask you this: do you think Inter Miami would have had a fighting chance against any other European team who've made the round of 16?
I mean, Inter Milan, maybe? No, I think that's a fair question and a fair point. Because, I think they're going to be overwhelmed by basically every European team. I mean, including Dortmund, who don't always have a ton of resources, don't always have the deepest squad. But I think you look at that Dortmund team and you look at the options they have on the bench, even they would be expected to beat Miami somewhat comfortably. And I think, to Graham's point, PSG probably could have made this a lot worse if they wanted to. I think once you're 4-0 up at halftime, you're not risking injuries. You sort of don't want to have that game where the other team has nothing to lose, and so maybe they sweep a leg, maybe they come in a little bit hard, and now you pick up an injury and you're out for the rest of the tournament, if not longer. So I think any European team is probably going to cause considerable problems for Inter Miami, and that's, to your point, not really a criticism of Inter Miami, more so of the limitations present with the salary budget and such.
Yeah, I don't think Mascherano's setup in this game helped Inter Miami. Maybe if they had, because he sets them up in a 4-4-2 in this game, and having a man disadvantage in midfield against this PSG midfield, I don't know how he ever thought that would work. And then in the wide areas as well, there was very little. Like Allende rarely helped out at Wigan against Kvaratskhelia, so he was getting ripped to shreds. Then on the other side, Alba's up against Barcola and Doué. Then he's having to get forward in the attack as well, because he's such an important way of how Miami get forward. He's trying to do this at like the age of 86 or however old he is now. So I think there's a world where, had this been Inter Milan, who don't we'll talk a little bit more about them later on, but they don't look in great shape right now, or Juventus haven't been great in the last couple of matches. If you have a matchup like that, and then you play in the way that actually Inter Miami in the first couple of games, where they did seem a little bit more willing and able to sit off and stay compact, and obviously Ustari stood in his head in the first game, so that might have helped. So there's a world where they're potentially competitive in that sort of scenario. But the way that this game panned out, and the way, as I say, the way that Mascherano set up this team, it was just never, ever going to happen.
To your question, though, Ryan, Graham's done it. If Mascherano set his team up well, and if they were up for it, and if they got to halftime against Juve and it was 0-0, I think they might have been able to get one more in the second half, as Juve, I don't know, asked the 11 players who'd already asked to sub out, and then some more players subbed out. I feel like that maybe could have gone Miami's way.
Yeah, more on Inter and more on Juve and their subbing questions later on in this episode. Why don't we talk about the other Italian side, though? Inter Milan going out at the hands of Fluminense, a 2-0 result for the Brazilian side here in Charlotte on Monday. Graham, on the Al-Hilal shock index, where does this one rate in terms of a surprise result? I mean, Inter probably not the best tournament here, but I mean, they got a good result against River Plate in the groups, and they've not been bad by any stretch.
I don't think they've been great at this tournament either. So I'm not going to revise things. I didn't have this one down on upset watch. I said Inter were going to come through this game. I maybe shouldn't have said that because I think there were some signs throughout this tournament from Inter. They struggled through the game against, they drew against Monterrey. I watched their game against Urawa Red Diamonds where they struggled hugely to get 3 points against a very limited opponent in that game. The game against River Plate, sure, that's a decent result. But this is a team that seems to be in a little bit of chaos right now. They obviously lost their manager only a few weeks ago to Al-Hilal, the aforementioned Al-Hilal, who are doing quite well. And they kind of went through 4 different managerial candidates. They wanted Fabregas, they wanted Vieira. I think there's another one that they went to before they end up with Christian Kivu. So he's essentially the Nuno for Inter Milan in this situation. I think I read that he has coached 13 Serie A games in his managerial career. I knew he was a relative rookie, a relative novice, but that is quite incredible.
Well, I think that was just last season, right? And then he was in the lower divisions before that, or the youth setups.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. So they've taken an absolute punt on Christian Kivu, largely because he's a former Inter player. Like, that has to be part of it, which I never think is a good way to hire a manager. And in this game, it was all the worst things of Inter Milan coming to the fore, where I just thought they looked lacking in ideas when they had to break down a low defensive block. When Fluminense were in the low defensive block, there were also other periods of this game where Fluminense pressed the life of Inter Milan, particularly in the first half. And Inter Milan looked really shaky in those situations as well. And I noticed they were allowing Stefan de Vrij to have the ball. As soon as it went to anyone else on either side of de Vrij, they were pouncing, they were swarming. 2 players on that one Inter Milan player. They struggled with that situation. Second half, they did have a few opportunities. Martinez hits the post. He also draws a really good save from Fabio. De Vrij has a chance at the near post as well. So there's a scenario where Inter Milan still managed to rescue this. But I just thought they looked very much like a team in need of a rebuild. And when you look at when you look at their debt situation, their finances, it's not guaranteed that is going to come this summer. So yeah, I think some teams, like when we talked about Man City, I think their fans can kind of shrug off what's happened to them at this tournament. I think Inter Milan will be coming out of this tournament pretty concerned about the outlook going forward.
I agree with that. I simultaneously kind of disagree at the same time. Because when we talked about this game, Graham, I think we were both... I was with you. I thought this would be Inter coming through somewhat comfortably, because I think the way we thought this was going to play out was Fluminense getting numbers behind the ball, packing it in, and basically making Inter beat them. And in terms of the numbers, it's 68% possession for Inter. They have 16 shots. They have more shots than Fluminense. They double their passing numbers. They have more corners, more set pieces. I think maybe the same number of big chances. All the same, that did kind of go the way we thought it would. I think the things that we didn't see coming were, number one, Fluminense changing their shape. Credit to Renato Gaucho, their manager. Yeah. He changes it to a back 3. To your point about what Javier Mascherano could have done, Gaucho essentially does that. He matches them 3 for 3 in the center of midfield. He puts in some wing backs to deal with the obvious attacking firepower of Federico Di Marco and Denzel Dumfries. And I think that largely worked. What we didn't think, or what I didn't think, was that we would see that aggressive press. And Graham is dead on with that one. That is where the first goal comes from. It is just sort of fortunate pressing and then fortunate aggressive wins of the ball to keep the play alive, and then opportunistic finishing off of a partially blocked, partially deflected cross in. And at that point, you're 1-0 down. You have to get a bit extended. They should have been 2-0 down. Who was it who robbed the goal? Graham, did you write that one down in your notes?
I can't quite remember, but I know what you're talking about. Who is it? Is it Arias?
Maybe it's Arias, yeah, but it's basically a header going in, and then a Fluminense player runs in and gives that last final header to put it in the back of the net, but he was offside. So it could have been 2-0 pretty quickly, and that maybe would have changed this game entirely. To Graham's point, though, you get multiple opportunities from Inter. Lautaro has those 2 really, really good ones. Then Fluminense scored the second goal in the dying minutes. And that goal, watching it again, it's just very clear that Inter have sort of given up at that point. I think once you have a shot saved like ridiculously and then you have another really good chance go off the post, I think it just feels like maybe this isn't our day. You could just see the lack of immediacy and pressure in closing down that leads to that Hercules amount of space and time he has to hit that shot, even if it is from a little bit of distance. By the time he hits it, he's in the box. It's a dangerous shot coming in, and Inter just didn't look too bothered. So in some ways, this game went the way we thought it might. I would just add the reason where I get a little bit confused about this team is that they obviously sent home a number of players before this game. I'm not sure if we should have known that was coming, Graham. Like, I know Çalhanoğlu hasn't played in this tournament, has been carrying an injury. He's sent back to Italy. So too were Benjamin Pavard, Zielinski, Fratesi, Jan Bisek. So you have potentially 5 starters, or at the very least 5 very important players not involved in this team anymore. Theoretically, they will be involved in the regular season. Maybe not Çalhanoğlu, we'll see. But I think there are extenuating circumstances there in what was a frustrating day where Inter had chances. So I think I wouldn't read too much into this one, except for the fallout around Çalhanoğlu and how much dissatisfaction there has been, plus the Kivu-ness of it all, the fact that you're comparing him to Nuno, I'm assuming with the Spurs appointment when they went through everybody in the managerial Rolodex, and at the end just kind of were like, well, who else is left? Nuno it is, and it does feel a little bit like Inter did that. So, like, the performance itself I don't think was too damning, but the surrounding accoutrement makes it worse.
Yeah, maybe they should just give the job to Lautaro Martinez, who very much seems like the main man in this dressing room, because he comes out after this game and has a go at... He doesn't specify names, but he has a go at players who want to leave, in his view, and how they should leave now, like sooner rather than later. Then the club president, Murata, comes out and reveals that it's Çalhanoğlu that he's talking about. And then Çalhanoğlu makes his own statement on his social media, and so it's just very chaotic at Inter right now. And I think that's definitely feeding into my opinion of where this team is right now. But yeah, clearly they still have talent in that team. I just think they were such an Inzaghi team that you pull him out of that situation and you put in someone who, what is Christian Kivu's approach? What is his style of play? Does anyone really know? Does he know himself after 13 Serie A games as a manager? I just think that's going to be a difficult one for them to navigate.
To fill in a little bit more of the gaps for folks who aren't paying attention to Inter Milan's off-season squad drama, which I'm guessing is many folks, the issue with Çalhanoğlu is not participating in the preseason or in the Club World Cup. Number one is going to annoy Lautaro Martinez, who himself returned very early from injury to play in the Champions League final, played through injury last season when a lot of his teammates could not or would not, and I think has been seen as a player who will sacrifice his body. He came close to sacrificing himself so that he couldn't make Argentina's 2022 World Cup squad. He ended up making it, but was still carrying a knock, and so I think there's a feeling from him at least. He's made a lot of sacrifices. He plays through injury. Çalhanoğlu is not, but also away from that, Çalhanoğlu, I think his dad came out and was basically openly saying, I want him to move to Galatasaray. Çalhanoğlu, born in Germany to Turkish parents, has never played in Turkey to my knowledge, even on loan, obviously plays for the Turkish national team. His father is a lifelong Galatasaray fan, so wants him to go play for Galatasaray. Then there's social media posts where it's like Çalhanoğlu with his barber in Istanbul, and his barber's wearing an Galatasaray jersey, and there's just been a lot of little kind of murmurings about how Çalhanoğlu might want to leave, and Çalhanoğlu himself has been pretty silent up until this point, and so I think there's a feeling that he is, if not agitating, quietly positioning for a potential move to Galatasaray, and so that I think has led to a lot of we're trying to kind of come together to compete in this competition and start building towards next season. Are you going to be a part of the team, or are you sort of already mentally in another country playing in another league? And I'm not sure which it will end up being. I'm not sure Çalhanoğlu knows which it will end up being, though I think he has said he is committed. So we'll see how it plays out. The transfer window should be spicy.
Has Çalhanoğlu tried the Alejandro Garnacho method of just wearing the shirt of the club that he wants to join?
And then when that doesn't work, just be kind of bad for a few months and see if that generates any interest. Yeah, we'll see.
All right, we're gonna hit a break, but before we do, challenge for you, both of you. Name a player on this Inter Milan team who you don't think could have Galatasaray as their next club. Name one.
Yeah, they're very Galatasaray coded, Inter Milan.
Right.
I'll give you that.
Even
Marcus
Thuram, man. Like even Marcus Thuram, like it doesn't seem like he should be, but we've seen it before where like maybe he gets into a feud with the manager, maybe he and Christian Kivu don't get along, maybe ownership sours on him, and suddenly next season or in January he's in Turkey for Galatasaray or Fener. Yeah. It's a great point, Ryan. It's a very, very good point.
Honestly, as we're speaking now, I cannot rule out Federico Di Marco spending a couple years at Fenerbahce or Galatasaray at some point in the past. Could have happened. I can't remember it, but it could have happened. Feels right.
I think maybe in January Kivu's going to unretire and start playing there. You never know. It could all happen at this point. We shall see.
Still be younger than a Cherby.
Dude, Ryan, that is an incredible shout. Like I'm just running through it now. Every single player, it seems possible.
Yep.
Wow.
That's right.
Good
all
work
right.
by you.
Break time. Let's when we come back, we'll talk about some of the other big games from the round of 16, including, of course, Real Madrid's win over Juve and much more. And we'll look ahead to the quarterfinals. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Club World Cup roundup. Let's talk about Real Madrid's 1-0 win over Juventus. Trent, as he's now singularly known, with a €10 million cross for Gonzalo Garcia for the winner in this one. We have Kylian Mbappe coming back, making his debut. Apparently, he lost 11 pounds from his stomach virus. Woo. 5 kilos, goodness me. This one was a 3 p.m. kickoff in Miami. Might explain how the Juve team looked a little tired towards the end of this one. Igor Tudor, as we referenced Graham earlier, mentioned that 10 players. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was just because it was 3 p.m. in Miami. Factors, plenty of them. But Igor Tudor saying that 10 players asked to be substituted. 10 players asked to be substituted in this loss to Madrid. So, Graham, we can talk about that, but also the fact that Xabi Ball's shaping up pretty nicely.
Yeah, I think in a broad sense it is. I didn't think this was the best of the round of 16 games that we had in this round. And I think we partially have, part of that is genuinely down to the conditions. By the end of the game, I think both teams are just absolutely zapped by the heat, particularly Juventus with their 10 players who wanted to be subbed. But I also think we have partially have Man City to blame for the fact that this game wasn't great. Because after that heavy loss to City, I thought Juve set up in this match to be much more compact, much more conservative. They wanted Real Madrid to play through them and then play on the break. And that resulted in a bit of a standoff of a match. Now, what I should say is Juventus started pretty well in this game, and between Kenan Yildiz, who's been excellent at this tournament, or was excellent at this tournament, and Kolo Muani, the two of them were giving Real Madrid real trouble getting in behind. And there's a chance for Kolo Muani in this game, which is reminiscent of his big chance in the World Cup final a few years ago, where he's clean through and goal, and instead of Emi Martinez making that famous save, he kind of chips it onto the roof of the net. And if that goal goes in, the game stays completely different, and this match looks completely different. But after that chance, we kind of saw the first, I would consider anyway. Maybe Xabi Alonso changed it after going down to 10 men against Pachuca, but I think we saw the first sort of true tactical tweak from Xabi Alonso as Real Madrid manager, where he starts with Tchouaméni as part of his back three in this game, but there was too much space between that back three and the midfield, and so he moves Tchouaméni just a little bit further forward into the midfield, so he's the base of the midfield. That then allowed him to track Kenan Yildiz so that there's someone close to him anytime that he is on the ball, and it passed Kolo Muani on to Rudiger, and he was just physically able to match up against him a lot better. And once Real Madrid did this, they were pretty much in full control of this match, and it was Gonzalo Garcia who gets the only goal of the game, and he's becoming one of the defining storylines of this tournament. I think we might have mentioned him on our last Club World Cup episode, but he's improved, or his record's improved even further since then, Taylor. He's now got 3 goals in 4 games. He set a scoring record for Castilla last season, so he has been on the radar. Like, Real Madrid fans have spoken about him. I don't think anyone expected him to play a prominent role for this team at this tournament. And of course, Mbappe being hospitalised is the reason he ends up starting. But now heading into this next game in the quarterfinal, it's a genuine question of, well, who do you start? Do you start the orthodox number 9, who seems to be a good fit for Alonso's system and his approach, who's in form? Or do you start the guy who's lost 11 pounds in the last week and who still is a little bit of an awkward fit for this team? So, yeah, Garcia's been excellent. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Joselu and some of the things that he used to do for this Real Madrid team. He's only 5'12", but he's excellent in the air. Obviously, his goal in this game is a header. So yeah, I'm just really interested to see what his development is from this point forward, because he's looked great.
Yeah, there you go. Real Madrid doing what Real Madrid do in knockout tournaments, win games. They are going to be playing on July 5th, on Saturday, against Borussia Dortmund, who got a 2-1 win over Monterrey. We're not getting Job versus Jude, though. Job got a yellow card. He's suspended for this one. Boo! Graham, I'm sad.
Yeah. And sad for the Bellingham family. Although, actually, will they be pleased about this? Is this one of the things that if you're a parent, you're quite pleased that you're two?
Well, according to The Simpsons, they'll just hug in the centre circle. So,
yeah. Is Jude Bart in that situation, and Lisa and Job is Lisa, the new kid on the block who's great as a hockey goalkeeper? Is that?
Yep. That's it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, Job has been great so far in this tournament. So I would have liked to have seen that duel. But I think Dortmund we haven't really had a chance to talk about them yet at this tournament. But I think Niko Kovac is doing some really interesting things with this team, particularly in the attack, where it feels like he's doing something different with the players that he has in every game. So the last time I watched them against Ulsan HD, they had this setup where it was almost like two front twos with Svensson and Adeyemi on the left, and then they would switch positions in and out of possession, and Svensson would then surge through the middle, and Adeyemi would then push out to the left side, and that was really effective at creating space. In this game, what they did was they moved Adeyemi over to the right, so they got him closer to Girassi, and then they kind of shaded Bellingham left, so he was closer to Svensson. And that link up between Adeyemi and Girassi in this game was so incredibly effective, because Adeyemi, he was able to stretch the game with his pace. He did that so many times, but then he had the composure to set up Girassi inside the box for both of his goals, and one of the goals, and then the other one he had a hand in as well. So that combination essentially won Dortmund this game, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them against Real Madrid, because I think that potentially could be a favourable matchup for Borussia Dortmund, and I've said that before heading into games against Real Madrid, particularly that Champions League final a couple of seasons ago, which they ended up losing pretty convincingly. But Dortmund have looked good at this tournament so far.
I really like Niko Kovac as a manager. Obviously, it doesn't go particularly well for him with Bayern Munich, but I think he's always been a manager who's able to get a good performance out of a squad that maybe doesn't have the glitz and glamour and doesn't have like the massive amount of money spent on it. Going back to Frankfurt and now with Dortmund. But I think he's also able to find combinations that work really well, to Graham's point. He's able to kind of motivate players and find new ways to utilize players. And I think he's used this tournament really effectively, to Graham's point. He's tried different formations and different approaches, and I think he's coming away with different looks and multiple looks that he can then use in the regular season. I won't be surprised if Dortmund start very strongly in the Bundesliga because of this tournament, because they've been able to find different ways to incorporate Julian Brandt and Joe Bellingham with Girassi, but then you can sit Brandt and bring in Adeyemi and get just different sort of attacking options. You're not sort of riding the same one or two and hoping they perform. The Nemecha-Gross partnership in the center midfield seems to be strengthening, but then he still has Sabitzer coming in off the bench when he needs sort of depth and reinforcement in there. It feels like he's doing a really good job of finding different sort of permutations with this Dortmund team to make them stronger than they otherwise would be. So I think, if nothing else, even if they aren't able to continue on in this competition, I think he's set himself up and this club up really well for the start of the Bundesliga campaign.
That's great. I look forward to Dortmund being really bad, then really good on a bi-weekly basis, as is their
pretty much
tradition. Yeah, very good. You know, Girassi with 2 goals in this game. If he's that good this coming season, maybe Signal Iduna Park gets renamed Jurassic Park. I'll workshop that one. I'll keep working on that one. A few more games to get to from the round of 16, Graham. Bayern Munich with the 4-2 win over Flamengo, a Brazilian team, one of 2 Brazilian teams going home from this round.
Yeah, I'd tip this as the upset of the round of 16, and obviously that didn't happen. What I will say, though, is I thought Flamengo were a little bit unlucky in this game, because in the first half, Bayern, from an XG of 0.34 or 3-1 up at halftime, the first goal is an own goal, the second goal is a deflection, the third one is a shot from outside the box. It wasn't like Bayern were creating clear-cut chance after clear-cut chance, and actually Flamengo end that first half with the higher XG, more big chances, more shots, so they were certainly competitive in this game. What Bayern were really good at was they started really aggressively Bayern, and they pressed high from the jump, which was designed to stop Flamengo getting into their passing rhythm. And the two players who were more effective at this than anyone else, I saw James Alcott highlighting this after the game, he was on the panel, were Upamecano and Leimer, who were really proactive when they were jumping high, and they wanted to stop Pulgar and De Arrascaeta from getting on the turn and then playing forward. And the two Harry Kane goals in this game actually come directly from these sorts of moments. The first one, it's Upamecano. The second one, it's Leimer when they're really high in the press and then the ball turns over and Harry Kane punishes them. But then even then, I thought Flamengo started to find some solutions because they dropped Pulgar into the back line to then open up some more angles. Started to get some triangles going involving the fullbacks. They were pulling Bayern out wide, then moving them centrally again to open up space. So even there, I thought Flamengo were competitive in this game. And defensively, they were doubling up and tripling up on Elise on one side and then Coman on the other side. That was really effective. What that did was that, to their detriment, it kind of emptied out the midfield when the ball would turn over from those wide areas. And we saw that for the Goretzka goal, where he just has so much time and space to get that shot away from the edge of the box. So, look, over the 90 minutes, Bayern probably edged it and deserved to go through. I'm not disputing that. But I am sad to see Flamengo go out because with a kinder draw, I certainly think they could have gone further. I think there are worse teams than them in the quarterfinals, but that's just how knockout football works.
Graham, a follow-up question to a conversation we had last week. When we were predicting top scorer, I think we all landed on Harry Kane. I think that's where we left it, assuming that he would score a bunch against your beloved Auckland. I don't think he played in that game. I don't think he scored in that game.
No, he did. He
played.
Did score, though.
Oh, he played, Taylor.
Okay. Well, right now, does anyone know who the top scorer in this competition is?
It's got a big Harry Kane.
Kane's got 3, right?
Yeah.
Is it Girassi?
There is one player on 4 goals. It is Angel Di Maria. We all saw that coming,
yeah.
right? He is now eliminated, obviously. There are, I believe, 12 players on 3 goals. That includes Harry Kane, Jamal Musiala, and Michael Olise. Marcos Leonardo of Al-Hilal also on 3. Pedro Neto of Chelsea. Sergio Girassi also on 3. And Gonzalo Garcia as well. If we had to pick from that group, who do we think is going to end up as your Golden Boot winner? Or will it be Angel Di Maria with his 4?
Harry Kane, because I bet on it.
All right.
Yeah, Kane feels right. I would say Garcia, but Mbappe's going to come back into that team, isn't he? Now that he's available again.
And get 5
Girassi,
goals?
by the way, I didn't get the chance to make this point when we were talking about Dortmund. People definitely sleep on how good he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he consistently, was he not second top scorer in the Champions League last season? He was top scorer in the Bundesliga 2 seasons ago. He was up there again last season. He's doing it again in this tournament. I feel like if you were to ask people the 10 best strikers in European football, they probably wouldn't get to Sergio Girassi, but they really should, because he's prolific at this point.
I've got a joke about how they should name the stadium after him. I'll tell you guys at some point. A couple of other games to get to from the round of 16. Palmeiras with the 1-0 win over fellow Brazilians Botafogo, and Chelsea with their epic 4-1 win after extra time against Benfica, which took a little more than 4.5 hours to complete in Charlotte because of the inclement weather. So yeah, Chelsea will be hoping when they play Palmeiras this coming Friday that it's a bit of a shorter affair, Graham. But yeah, a bit of a slog, that one. Yeah,
4 hours and 38 minutes exactly is what it took to complete this game from kickoff. It was a match that ended up being more of a talking point for the soccer that wasn't played than the soccer that actually was. Maresca calling it the delay a joke. He certainly wasn't happy about it. And I know there's a lot of, not to editorialise here or put my point across, I know there's a lot of kind of like American chuckling at the fragile and soft Europeans struggling to deal with a bit of weather. I get that. I do think there's a point where I kind of side with Maresca, and a stoppage of 2 hours or more is a lot, because you've got players getting cold in that time, and I know Chelsea had players, and Benfica as well, I presume they had players on the bikes in the dressing room, and I'd imagine you're at risk of injury if you're coming out again to play the game after a stoppage like that. By the time you restart the game as well, a lot of the fans have gone home. So it just felt a little bit farcical once the game got underway. And I actually waited up. This was one of the games for me that was the middle of the night. I waited up to see the last 5 minutes, because the stoppage happens 85 minutes into this game. And so for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why, I waited up to see. I felt like I needed closure on this match. And then, of course, Benfica come out, and they restart the game at 100 miles an hour and completely catch Chelsea cold and get that equaliser, and it goes to extra time. So yeah, the dynamic of the game completely changed after that stoppage. Of course, the red card then swings it back towards Chelsea, and in the end they just have too much firepower when they've got a man advantage. But it was a match that in the end did feel, to Maresca's point, felt slightly farcical.
So what I'm hearing is there was a rain delay and a weather delay, and then things got really exciting and interesting. Graham, regarding weather and rain delays, I just had 2 quick follow-up questions. Number 1, do you want any cheese to go with that wine?
I think the Wambulance has just arrived.
That was my second question. Would you like me to call the Wambulance for you?
No.
Never not funny. All right. Finally, on this episode, let's run
It's
through.
less funny when one time I actually hurt myself. I think I got stung by a wasp recently, and my 4-year-old, being genuine, asked me, "Do you want me to call the Wambulance for you?" And she meant it sincerely, but it hurt my feelings all the same.
Did she call the ambulance for you?
She did not. I was like, "No, I'm fine." And I cried quietly in the corner.
Good boy. All right. Quarterfinals. Let's look ahead to them. On Treason Day this Friday, we've got Palmeiras taking on Chelsea and Fluminense taking on Al-Hilal. Then on Saturday, PSG Bayern Munich, woof, and Real Madrid Borussia Dortmund. A very European side of the bracket on Saturday. Taylor, what are we looking forward to the mostest out of these?
That Fluminense Al-Hilal game, I think, will be really interesting. Fluminense had Martinelli leave the game in like the 18th minute in the first half, I think, at least, with an injury. And he's a very pivotal player for them. So if he's not able to go, that certainly hurts Fluminense. I mentioned Marcos Leonardo being on 3 goals after getting the brace against Inter Milan. I would expect some more goals in this one. I won't be surprised if we come out of this round with him as the leading Golden Boot candidate at least level with Angel Di Maria. So I would expect Al-Hilal to make a run in that one, or to get out of that one. They've got a lot of very, very talented players. The Chelsea Palmeiras one, I think, could be interesting, though I'm definitely feeling like that will be Chelsea's victory unless there's a 4-hour rain delay this time. PSG Bayern is probably the most interesting from a European heavyweight versus European heavyweight standpoint. So that's probably the one that people will most want to catch for all of the star power and the potentially fascinating permutations. Of those 3, I think Fluminense Al-Hilal is still the one I'm most enthusiastic to watch. Real Madrid Dortmund, I could see being interesting. I could also see being like 1-0 after extra time.
I knew you'd pick that one, Taylor. I just knew
Which
it.
one?
Graham? The Fluminense game. It's very, very
You know which one
Rock-esque.
which one I'm gonna pick as well, and people will roll their eyes at me going down the hipster route, but I agree with Taylor. Fluminense Al-Hilal. I just think this tournament has been defined by the non-UEFA teams. We've got the Champions League to see PSG and Bayern Munich and Real Madrid play Dortmund, and those games will be interesting in their own right, but the differentiator for this tournament is games like Fluminense and Al-Hilal and Palmeiras and Chelsea. So yeah, those are the games where my eye is naturally drawn to. Taylor.
Definitely.
If Al-Hilal, having beaten Manchester City, let's say they win this game, they play Chelsea. Chelsea obviously no longer owned by oil money, but having had a strong foundation in oil money, let's say Al-Hilal win that, and then they play PSG in the Club World Cup final. That is like the oil money route to a championship, no? Like that I don't know who you root for in any of those games, and certainly Al-Hilal PSG feels very ick, even if it would also be kind of fascinating at the same time. That's an interesting narrative to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that game feels less like a soccer match and more like a kind of foreign policy development.
Oh, that's Qatar versus Saudi. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, that's going to be fascinating. Oh, boy. Okay. All right.
Okay, I think I need a shower. Let's park this Club World Cup preview here. Of course, we'll be back to talk about the latter stages of this tournament. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your services, and thank you for not for leaving me unchecked when I called July 4th Treason Day about 5 minutes ago.
Hey, your Treason Day is my wonderful day. I don't know. I don't really care about July 4th. It's great. Fireworks. Woo! Don't get your hands blown off.
Good tip. Graham Ruthven, thank you very much.
It's always good advice. Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Taylor, for the sage wisdom.
That's what I'm here for.
Total Soccer Show, we bring you the latest soccer news and fascinating consumer advice. Listener, thank you very much for joining us on this episode. We'll be back on the feed very shortly indeed. But for now, bye!